And a good afternoon, Mark. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. That one hurt a little bit.
We're doing crappy, Stink, honestly.
We just got our ass kicked in, bro.
Yeah. We crapped in our helmet again, Stink.
Yeah, you certainly did. Listen, you know what? I said this on Breakfast Ball, the show here I do in New York. I've said it on my podcast. I predicted the Saints going in there and beating the Cowboys. They're a physical freaking group, man. They're a physical football team. And it's so funny. I just got done doing an interview in Chicago, and it's amazing how you build a football team. And, Chicago has built it from the outside in. Like, hey, we got so many, we got Keenan Allen, and we got DJ Moore, and now we got Rome Odunze, and we got, a tight end and Komet, and we got a running back in Swift, and we're going to be unstoppable. We got all these weapons. Well, guess what? You can't block anybody. Last Sunday night against Houston, 37 dropbacks by the quarterback Caleb Williams, 36 pressures. So you do the math. How's all that weaponry doing as you're kicking field goals? Let me ask you that. So it's really interesting when you put a team together that can absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage and how it just basically beats the will out of you. And one thing I would tell you is, watching that game, and it's humiliating, getting physically whooped at the line of scrimmage and physically just beat down. How do you respond to that? And the answer for the Cowboys is they had no response to that because they could not match the physicality of the Saints. And that's concerning, because that's on film, that shows. And then you just start saying, well, hey, listen, guys, we might not be able to out-talent the wide receiving core. We may not be able to out-talent them, but we can beat them up. And that's going to be a recipe until they solve it. Every team's going to come in there and try to physically wear them out.
So how do you become a physical team?
Well, you got to have the right players, obviously. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. You got to have the right players, and then you've got to have a dedication to it. It's got to become your identity. It's got to become what you do, who you are, and the way you go about handling your business. And so it's one of those things that you just come out and say, this is who we're going to be, and this is how we're going to work on it, and this is the way we're going to play the game. Now, unfortunately, listen, it's really hard to work on those things because, I don't know, in a physical contact sport and, where technique and coming off the ball and creating leverage and all that stuff is really important, we're no longer allowed in this league to practice. We're no longer allowed to hit people in practice. And so it's really, if you don't have it and it's not something you did in training camp, and it's not really how you're built or who you are, it's really hard to have that happen. It's funny, I was calling a game in Detroit last year, and Roger Goodell came up to me, and he said, hey, Stink, how's it going, Stink? He goes, at this point, we had so many quarterbacks miss games. I think it was 68 games missed by starting quarterbacks in the league or something at this point. He goes, what are we going to do about all these quarterbacks missing games? And I go, I don't know, Roger. If you keep legislating contact out of a contact sport and you don't get to work on it as an offensive line anymore, and you don't think there's a cause and effect of guys getting hurt at the quarterback position? I mean, come on. You can't work on it. You can't block people. You don't know how to block people. And now we wonder why the quarterbacks are getting hit and getting hurt. I mean, it's silly to me the way we operate as a league. But yeah, once that ship sails, it's hard to it's hard to all of a sudden go, okay, now we're going to be physical. Well, when are you going to work on it? I don't know.
One thing we've been talking about as a Cowboys problem, maybe an NFL problem, is their inability defensively when they go up against one of these coaching staffs from the Shanahan tree. You played, of course, for Mike, blocked for a 2,000-yard rusher. What are the keys to that Shanahan running scheme? And has it evolved as you've been watching it grow with Kyle and LaFleur and now Clint Kubiak with the Saints?
Yeah, get a lead and then don't let them run. They're just really good at the way they operate their run game. And I think one of the things that scheme does a great job of is obviously, it's really based out of the wide zone, but it's a lot deeper. There's a lot more involved in it now. There's still a lot of gap stuff they run. They really run a lot of complementary stuff. And so, you're running like, for me, and I don't want to get too technical, but you're running the backside of tight zone, right? And you've got the same footwork all the time. You're coming off the ball. And I always say, make guys play schemes, not blocks. So you're coming off the ball in that tight zone, and they're playing that, and they're trying to squeeze and, not cross your face, but squeeze your face down. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, now we're going to run power or counter, and we're going to double team that. We're going to use the exact same footwork that guy has seen 5 times, and now he's going to squeeze, and now we're going to roll him over and take him 4 gaps out of where he's supposed to be, and we're running counter gap scheme on the coming back at him. And so you set people up by the way you run the ball. One thing San Francisco does such a great job of is attacking the edge. So 1 minute, you'll attack a defensive end, and it'll be between tackle and tight end. That's called a tray block. Then all of a sudden you'll have 2 tight ends over there in a West formation, and then it's 2 tight ends attacking that defensive end. And that's called a quad. And then all of a sudden you'll have 1 tight end over there. The tackle will work in combination backside with a guard, and that tight end will basically kind of arc release, and all of a sudden the fullback will come from the backfield and log that or hit that guy in the ear hole. And so now I just showed you, or I just told you, 3 different ways to block a defensive end on, say, 18 handoffs. And all 3 of those things are the exact same play for 9 players. But there's just 2 guys changing their responsibility, but it looks like 3 completely different plays to a defensive end. And you can get them 4 different ways. And that's what they do. So they get you just playing on skates because you're like, where are they coming from and what play am I defending? For the offense, it's really easy. But for the defense, it looks like a bunch of different plays. And so it makes it very difficult.
Mark Schlereth with us here on The Fan. Now, a broadcaster question for you, because we heard that Brady might not be able to get in these production meetings before these games because of the ownership stuff with the Raiders. I don't know how true that exactly is, but how important are those meetings as a guy who calls games? If you weren't a part of those meetings, do you feel like you'd have your hand behind your back a little bit calling these games?
Can you do it? Yeah. Can you a lot of guys do it on Zoom, and I don't know if they're just saying you can't come into the meeting. I don't know. I don't know what that is. And so guys do it on Zoom or whatever. I don't ever. I demand that the teams meet with me in person. I want to be for what I say, and I also want to meet people and talk to people and ask real football questions. And I want to sit down with coach and say, hey man, last week on this play or 2 weeks ago, you guys did this. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Why is that? Who made the mistake? I want to know, I really want to learn about football. I'm constantly learning about the game. I love it. So I love sitting down and, because I do it that way, I mean, I've probably gotten, 5 or 6 consulting jobs over the years, just, for different teams. And I got a Rolodex of head coaches and offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators in my phone that I call and I lean on because those guys respect it. Like coaches love, you guys know this, coaches love to talk about football.
They do. That's
what they love to talk about. They don't want to, if you sit down with them and you talk about, what every beat writer in America said, well, so-and-so said that, this guy was grumpy because he only played 3 plays on defense. And then you go in and ask them the same damn thing, they tune you out. But when you ask them an actual football question, like something you want to know about the broadcast, and they're like, oh, okay. I want to talk to this guy because it's refreshing that he's actually looked at all the film.
Yeah.
And so, that's just kind of how I do it. And I just, I'm not, listen, man, obviously, Brady comes into town, I get kicked to the curb. So, I get where I stand, but I'm not the best in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But I love this game. I'm passionate about this game. And I do it the way I do it. And it may not be the best, but, if you don't like it, I don't give a crap. That's the way I do it.
Well, I know football junkies love your breakdowns right now. We're getting great reaction here on our text toy as Mark Schlereth continues here in the nation. Did you call Ravens Raiders this week?
No, I had Giants Washington, which was a phenomenal game. First game in history where the Giants scored 3 touchdowns and didn't give up a touchdown and lost. It's the first time in the history of the National Football League that has ever happened.
It's amazing.
Where a team scored 3 touchdowns and didn't give up one and lost the game.
So we're trying to figure out, what to make of this Ravens team. Are they 0-2 bad? Is this a good team just off to a slow start? What do you think?
Oh, I think they've had some O-line issues. I think that's definitely true. I also think that they've had some identity issues. And, I think almost, John Harbaugh came out before the season started unsolicited and said, Lamar Jackson is going to go down in history as the best quarterback that ever played the game. And, and it almost feels like there's some self-fulfilling prophecy going on there. Listen, Lamar is a 2-time MVP. Lamar is incredible. Lamar is not a drop back, eat you from the pocket alive guy on a consistent basis. Sorry, he just isn't. But he's one of the most dynamic athletes I've ever watched. He's one of the very few guys I've ever watched in the NFL that can take NFL players and make them look like JV players. Like, he's that gifted. And, John also said, hey, I didn't sign Derrick Henry to carry it 30 times a game. What? Have you looked at him? He's 6'3", 250 pounds. He can outrun a DB. Like, you better get it 30. You better get it 25 times a game. Like, what did you bring him there for? You got 15 carries the first game. Listen, I get that you're trying to evolve, and I get that you're trying to, save your quarterback. Whatever. You are what you are. And, what Lamar is awesome. So let him be that. It kills me. Put a guy in a position to fail. Don't be surprised when he fails. You're the dumbass that put him there. I don't understand what it is about NFL coaches that want to look at what a guy can't do and want to live in that realm. That doesn't make any sense to me. What can he do? What is he good at? Let's let him live there, as opposed to saying, you know what, hey, we win a lot of games like this, but I really wish we could do some of these things, so let's just let him live there for a while and cost ourselves games. That just doesn't make any sense to me. He is one of the most dynamic, unbelievable athletes I've ever seen. Let's let him just be that, and let him live there, and we'll win a lot of games, and maybe we can figure it out in the playoffs, and maybe we'll win a championship that way.
Great stuff, Mark. Have a good week, and we'll catch you up with you next Tuesday.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.